Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toku Portal podcast for Kamen Rider Saber. It's a miracle I am back. I am Vashi V, and joining me today is...
Hello everyone, it's Zero here, and yes, for once Vashi is back, which is cool. I mean, he's been working way too hard lately, so that's nice.
Oh, that is entirely an understatement. I've been doing multiple people's jobs the last couple of weeks.
That's awful.
With minimal training on how to do said jobs.
Oh, so just the best
So,
working conditions.
Yeah, so it's been a very stressful few weeks. But at least Saber's starting to get interesting.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. It's like, it's interesting. It's not good per se, but it's not as boring as it used to be.
Outside of the very obvious thing with this episode, this is hands down the best episode they've had. It's like, this episode itself, if it were in any other series, would be a fantastic episode.
Oh, I don't know about that. I was gonna get with like everybody's like complains about Fies being the show where people don't talk. Like, fuck that. Fies got nothing on this show.
No. and that's what I said. Aside from the stupidity of that and the obviousness of being, involved in it, this is fantastic. This is what the show should have been from the start.
Yeah, I would agree if it was at this level of like involving everything, sure. What the fuck happened this episode? No. Because a lot of dumbass shit happened. Especially because they crammed it all into one episode. It's like extra dose of stupid.
Right, like this should have been a slow progress, and they did rush through it. I will admit that.
Yeah, I feel like the first half of this was great because they're like, oh, Saber, finally fucking taking a sec to, like, shit happened, let's, like, just have a happy moment. We don't gotta do everything crazy, let's get the team back together and regroup. It's like, nah, fuck that. We're like, second episode of the next arc, motherfucker. We got no time for this shit. Right. I was like, god damn it, man. Like, I mean, okay, yeah, we got interesting shit because of all the revelations, but I'm like, then the characters end up acting real fucking stupid to go along with the plot.
Yes, two in particular.
Oh yeah, man. Like, I was on like Kenzan's not terrible, but like, fuck it. At this point, like, Kenzan's one of the worst writers I've ever seen.
Oh, Kenzan's a piece of shit. I hate him.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Like, he is early Naruto.
Oh, yeah? Except worse?
Yeah, except worse. Because, like, at least early Naruto is, like, he knew when to shut up and step up.
Yeah, also Naruto's, like, 13. Like, Kenzan's supposed to be at least 18.
Right. And he's just a douche noodle.
Like, I could kind of buy it where it's, like, he's so emotional that, like, he doesn't want to fucking listen to anything about what Caliber said because it's like, oh, that guy killed Kento, right? Like Espada. Right. So it's like, we don't have to listen to it. I'm like, all right, that's kind of justified, but like everything else you did in this episode was fucking dumb.
Right. Like, and this is the bad thing with the show is like they made him basically come across as that idiotic child.
Right. I mean, which is like the green trope, it's like the green's usually the youngest in Sentai. But I'm like, this is Rider. It doesn't work like that.
But in the few episodes that we've had him versus the few episodes that we've had the literal child in, the child is more mature than Kenzan.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, the worst part is because they're rushing through stuff. That's why it's happening. Because, like, if they took its time, then it'd be like, all right, cool. He actually is a competent human being because most of the time he's fine. But the thing is, they never slow down when he's on screen. He's always like the guy who's like pushing shit forward. And so, like, he's the most disposable one, so they just give him whatever the fuck they need to say to be the asshole in the story.
And yeah, it's effective, unfortunately, and not in a healthy way.
Right, like, it drives the plot forward, but, like, it makes me just hate him so much. Because, like, everybody else, I'm like, all right, those are decent characters. They've got like complicated shit going on. Kenzan, you have a decent reason, but you're acting like a douchebag.
Right. It's like he's not surrounded by people who would have explained things to him better.
Right, which, like, I don't know, man. Like, I hate this episode. It's too fucking fast-paced, and it destroyed it. Like, because this is a good episode if you slowed the fuck down. But then but then they didn't.
Like you said, the first half of this episode was the best. When it got back to what made the Kamen Rider shows fantastic to start with.
Yeah.
You know, not everything is go, 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 go. Because
Right.
they take the time at the start of the episode and do other things.
I mean, hell, we even almost got like a second for the villains to get some character. Almost. Where it's like, oh, don't you feel bad that you can't fucking get any of your plans to work? And I think for a second I'm like, wait, is like Red really the guy who's had like the most plans? I'm like, yeah, he has.
He has. The sad thing is, the wolf, Mr. Sleeveless.
Yeah.
His plans are fucked up even more spectacularly than Red's has. It's like, why are you the one to push that button?
I mean, the thing is, like, he hasn't gone out as much, so that could have been a thing. Like, they could have had, like, a scene where it's, like, they push back against each other, like the Greed do, where it's, like, whenever, like, a Greed gets, like, cocky, it's like, hey, look at how good I am, and you're terrible. And then the other ones are like, what about your last plan? That fucking blew, too. It's like, like, they had, like, a back and forth. Like, none of the Greeds could, like, just one-up each other.
They did get a good job of that with Kazuri and Uva specifically.
Oh yeah, that's what I was getting at too. Right?
Like, even Ms. Wool did it from time to time, where she basically went, "Your boys' plans have failed. My turn. Watch this."
Pretty much, like, you're like idiotic children, right? And then
there was Gamel, who was a literal idiotic child.
Well, I mean, Gamel's fine. Like, the point about Mizul and Gamel is interesting because, like, they're not the typical, like, villains, because they're like, who cares? Okay, so you made fun of my plan. I don't give a shit. I got other shit to do. Mm-hmm. Right? And, like, Gamel's just like, oh, whatever. I'm just having fun. Right?
Yeah, Gamel's like, so I watched somebody throw a shoe at somebody. I'm just going to make everybody's shoes fly.
Right. He's just having fun. It's kind of that, like, Rook from Kiva level of, like, villains. Like, yeah, he's not the smartest guy, but, like, one, he's really strong. And two, it's like, not everything's, like, about the plan. He's just living his life. He just happens to be on the bad guy's team.
Right. Like, he would be the equivalent of Creon from Rio Soldier. That ended up being Creon's character of, I'm doing this because it's fun.
Right.
I'm on the bad guy side. Oops.
Yeah. Luckily enough, like, Rai was on the podcast last week, and then he actually told me what the fuck is going on with that. I'm like, wow, Sentai actually sounds real interesting with its villains this year, right?
Oh, last year and this year, the villains have been phenomenal.
Yeah,
like it'll take a little getting used to, with especially if you go back and watch Kira Major. It's a jarring shift from what we're used to, because it is more parody based.
Oh, okay.
But it is fantastic.
Yeah, see, that's what I was wondering about Rai too. Is like, I'm like, oh, so like they have this standard thing of like 5 villains, right? And they're like, no, there's like 3 of them. I'm like, wait, what? That's so much more Rider than anything Sentai usually does, right?
Right. There's 3 villains, and this isn't counting the main villain.
Yeah, so I mean, they're always there.
They're running the intro like they're gonna introduce a 4th, and they literally started the end game last week.
Yes.
I'm like, are you just gonna throw one in there, or are you just gonna fuck with the people who, watch your show and notice that you do these things and are waiting for that extra one?
Yeah, I feel like Saber is like literally the like antithesis of somebody who watches Rider. Because, like, the more Rider you watch and the closer you watch it, the worse the show gets. right?
and
Like you watch the intro, it's like it's boring, and then you watch the ending, and it's like, oh fuck, this ending is terrible, and then plus they don't change anything even though people die, and then you see like, oh shit, they only have 2 bikes because guess what? They were gonna kill off Sparta all along, so nobody else needs a bike. So I'm like, oh, you fucking piece of shit, right? But then like he's still in the ending, so it's like, oh come on, man, how fucking lazy can you be, right? And then like, yeah, there's like every single moment, the more you know about Ryder, it's like, okay, this isn't terrible, but it's like, why did you make this decision? Right? Like, this is a decent episode. It could have been great had they not crammed like an entire episode at the end of this into the middle, right?
Right. Like, the longer I've watched this show, and I mean, I've been watching Ryder since Decade. Like, every week since Decade started.
Right.
And then I've gone back and watched various of their, since Kuga is like, knowing as much as I do about Ryder, yes, this show sucks. There's no nice way to put it.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't want to bash it too much because like this was okay, but my problem is I just watched like Young Justice season 3 like last night, and so I'm like, Jesus Christ, that show is like a million times better than this. And so like even like Rise, like, oh, this is a good episode, so I'm like, all right, I'll look at it, and then I watch this and I'm like, fuck, this is not good enough
for what it's been doing. Yeah, this episode's fantastic for what we've been getting, which is, it's sad that when you take this in Ryder overall, it's mediocre.
It's mediocre, right? Like, this is just a standard monster of the week. Like, this is the first pure monster of the week we've gotten in a while because they're like, oh right, set up May's boss and she's gonna become the monster. It's like, oh yeah, that's the shit we used to do, right? It's like, oh right, yeah. Ryder's not constantly fighting. They're gonna plan to do something normal. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Oh look, the villains kind of have like a second to like bicker because they're not all the same. I'm like, huh, interesting. Oh look, there's this third person suddenly manipulating shit. Also, Sophia, we finally fucking figure out what's going on with her. I'm like, yeah, all good things. The way they threw it together is like, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And it's like, okay, why? Like, why is nobody stopping to think, like, what the fuck am I doing? And I know it's like a show that, like, the characters don't have time, but I'm like, no, okay, that's us watching it. In the real world, this is not happening in 20 minutes, right? No. This is taking, like, a day. Like, all 4 of them had to group up and then run to intercept Toma, right? Like, none of them at the moment are like, hey, maybe we should talk this out and not murder our friend. You know, that thing that happened almost twice before. Let's not do that a third time.
Right.
Right. Especially like Buster and Slash.
Buster and Daigo. Yeah, those two specifically.
Right. And like they had like good reasons in this fight for being like, man, just give up. I don't want to fight you. But then like the whole reason this is happening because you two idiots haven't learned your lesson.
Yeah, them two specifically. Like, Rintaro's reaction makes sense. I mean, the Sword of Logos is literally his family. If not for them, he'd be dead. It makes sense that he'd side with the Sword of Logos on, hey, Toma, you need to give up your stuff, and we need to figure some things out. Kenzan's just an idiot who just, all he wants to do is fight strong people. He really doesn't necessarily care who they are and ignores all common sense and logic. And then you have Buster and Slash, who literally have gone through this 3 times now and haven't figured anything out. They do absolutely nothing different from what they've done the last 3 times. Well, this would be the 3rd time.
Right, exactly. And then the other thing too with like Toma is like he's weirdly escalating. He should have been like, all right, I'm willing to hand it over if you're listening. But then I mean he does have a good point. It's like, I made a promise, I'm not gonna give this up. So like the solution is there, like, okay, let's not fight, let's de-hench and talk about. Also, he had like a good point. He could have just said like, hey, you know what, like, the freaking southern base tried to recruit me. I turned them down, and suddenly now they want my head. Right? Like one sentence. You have to just say that. Right? It's ridiculous. Like it's not bad because like shit's finally happening in Saber. But like, let's say if we already knew all this shit and this was like episode 3, like a 5-parter or whatever the hell, right? Like it would feel so terrible.
Yeah. It would. And it's bad when Pixie, a person who has only seen 4 to 5 Riders series in their entirety, has literally watched the episode and went, yeah, we've seen this before.
Oh yeah,
I mean, a lot.
Right, especially considering she's watching like Double now, and like Double is literally like almost every single case is interesting, right? I mean, they're all 2-parters, but like they're all interesting.
So far, except for one.
Yeah, there's a couple that are not.
One, the cockroach guy in memory one, but that one was stupid.
Oh, it sure is.
It has the best scene, breakdancing Double, but other than that.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, I remember. This is the Heaven's Tornado?
Yeah,
Heaven's Tornado is like the worst fucking episode of Double.
It really is, like, but that, to me, that's my favorite fight scene in that entire show.
Oh yeah, this fight scene is fun as hell, but damn, is that so... That is like them trying super hard to bring back Deno.
Right.
Right.
Like, and 100% that was, Deno was a thing, because they even had the hip-hop music going along with it during the fight scene. Though with that show, is like, it is bad because we're 7 episodes in, and she's already figured out the Philip plot line.
Yeah, but like everybody figures out the Philip shit. I mean, plus... I
didn't figure it out until damn near when they pointed it out.
Yeah, I kind of had like suspicions, but... The other thing, too, is, like, the Philip shit was done a lot more after Double, right? Yeah. So if you've seen, like, any of the Rider shows after Double, they kind of reference plot lines like that. So it's one of those problems of, like, it's like watching a gangster movie and going back and seeing Godfather. It's like, yeah, it works, but it's so basic now.
Right.
Compared to, like, everything that's come afterwards. So, like, I don't blame it, but... The Phil thing is interesting, honestly.
Despite her figuring it out, the best aspect of her watching the show, to me on my end, was her first question about Philip. Is he a robot?
Dude, yeah, for a second.
The first time he accessed the planet itself, it's like, is he a robot?
Yeah, no. For a second I did think that, right? Because like he's got the whole like AI thing going on.
Right.
But it's more complicated than that. Right, because like the guy memories are kind of like these biotech weapon things.
Also, on a side note, this is how bad Saber is. We're talking about Double.
Yeah, I mean we can get back to talk. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. Let's talk about some good things in this episode, right? Let's give like 10 minutes to that, I guess. We've been going for almost 20 minutes. Go ahead.
To me, the best parts of this episode are the first half, where they stop being writers for a minute and they're doing the what is the name of that ceremony? The Shui or whatever it is.
Yeah, the cleaning.
The end of the year ceremony, clearing everything out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
May goes back to work. We meet her boss.
Yeah, that was cool. Actually, I was like, holy shit, there's a set here.
Right, because it's something that's in the opening that we haven't seen for 16 episodes.
Right, that was cool. Like her boss is freaking cool as hell too.
And then we get a little more of what the book opening had done, and the effect that it had.
Yeah, I also like how it builds on the world, where it's like random people can see the other side now.
Yeah, it's not everybody. It's just certain people, which I'm sure is going to involve the bad guy's new plan with the new books.
Well, maybe. But I mean, like, it makes sense because, like, we tried to connect it from the other side to this side. Now we're just trying to connect this side to that side now. So, like, I guess it makes sense.
Right. And then the whole Tomo wanting to go hand in the manuscript in person because it's been so long since he's done that. It's just
Yeah, that was a good moment.
Even just May walking back and running into the guy who can see the world, and just that honest reaction of, oh my god, it's a weirdo.
Right. I wonder if that character is gonna come back, but that was freaking great. That's such like a honestly, it's kind of a double moment because like double, you have like all these characters throughout the city, and you run into them every once in a while, right?
Right, like you see like the same 5 or 6 minor characters every couple of episodes, like Santa-chan, the info dealer, the 2 girls in high school that also give him information, is like the 2 cops, is like it got a wide cast for reoccurring people, even for just small bit parts that could have easily just been, oh, he got this information from this guy over here, instead of, they didn't have to do the recurring characters like that, but it did help build the world building around that small detective story.
Right. And I think that's kind of the difference between Coast and Double, is because Double feels like it's set in a city where you kind of know people, whereas like Coast is like it's a big city. They're just an agency. They're like one small section. Well, right. That's not true. Like Wizard is like one small section. They're just getting clients from all over.
Right. I was intrigued by the reveal of who we were calling King Arthur.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
In that aspect.
Oh yeah, especially because like they just hint at the swords, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm the sword." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Like they because they pointed out several times throughout the episode, throughout the series so far, that the swords have some base sentience, because they're choosing their users.
Right.
So I was waiting for a sword to actually become a human, and I don't care what Rai says during our conversation. King Arthur's book doesn't count because he turns into a giant robot person. I don't care.
Yeah, that doesn't really count because, like, I think the books aren't alive. The belts probably are, or the swords or whatever, which is part of the belts.
I half expected the sword to literally transform into a person.
Oh, the other way.
The reverse of what the fuck we got.
Right? And I'm like, oh, first you turn a guy into a bike, then you turn one into a lion, then you fucking turn the dude into a sword. Right? I'm like, okay, man, Decade Season 2 already happened, and I know Sentai is Decade Season 3 coming up, but like, you don't gotta borrow so much from Decade, alright?
In defense of the turning a person into a bike thing, X8 wasn't the first one to do it.
Yeah, it's true. It's
but at least X8's had the explanation of, this is a video game.
Right, it's like, oh, my thing is just this is my power up, right? Which made sense. You're right, like Axel fucking doesn't make any sense why that's his power up. The
ultimate reason why it doesn't make any sense is he's got a goddamn bike.
Oh, yeah, it's so stupid. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense where it's supposed to be like, oh, this is the ultimate partnership, where it's supposed to be Philip and Axel, right? And so it should be like, oh, Ryder and his bike. So maybe that's what the fuck Shroud was going for, but like, I don't know. This is a lot of spoilers and speculation.
Yeah, it's really... It gets really weird. Actually, Double has those moments of, what the fuck am I watching? It's fantastic through and through, but it has its few moments.
Honestly, his like bike form is like the weirdest thing in Double.
Besides from some of the Dopants.
Oh yeah, I mean the Dopants are always weird because Rider monsters are weird, which is fine. But like, yeah, it started a damn annoying trend, to be honest.
It did. But yeah, like because Pixie had watched it while I was at work. I came home and I watched it, and she watched it with me. As soon as he popped up, I'm like, he's gonna turn out to be like God or something, isn't he?
That would have been interesting.
And like, she's like, Because in a way, kind of yes and no. He's like the sword of balance or whatnot.
Well, he's like the sword of light. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. That at least makes it a lot more sense. Like he's not as overpowered because then he can't just bring whatever back. He's just some legendary weapon. Right? Which is fine.
But he kicks everybody's ass as a sword by himself.
I mean, at first I'm like, that's weird. Why did you turn into a sword? But then I'm like, okay, it's a sword. What are you gonna attack? Right? Like you can only attack the sword itself, and he just turned back into his full form. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense why he's like overpowered.
Right. Like it was a good scene. It was just one of those of like, this is so out of place.
I don't know. I think in this show it kind of works because like the show is fucking random.
Yeah, like it does work in the shows, like, but it's like just from a critical aspect of watching 20 years of this show, it's like this is the
this is the level of nonsense we've come to.
Strange as hell.
Yeah.
Are you sure we're not watching a parody series now?
Yeah, pretty much, right? Where I mean, like if they didn't give him an explanation, it's like, oh, this is just my form. I'm the Sword of Light. I'm like, okay. That would have been super weird, but then they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm just a legendary weapon." I'm like, "Fucking weird," but at least they tied into the lore.
Right. In the end, though, this is my biggest problem with the episode. He shows up, reveals who he is, and everybody else is in awe because they understand what that sword is.
Right.
And the sword goes, "Y'all are fucking up. I'm on this guy's side. Y'all are fucking up." And they go, "Attack!"
Yeah, right. That's the dumbest thing, too. I mean, honestly, then they get their asses kicked, so I'm like, alright, maybe they're like, I just got my ass kicked by a legendary weapon. Best not to fucking double down on this. So they pissed off. Which I can be like, alright, fine. Better not fight that guy. Fine. But attacking him was such like, oh, this is a Kamen Rider fight. That's what we do, right? We charge the monster for no reason, or Rider, I guess in this case, as opposed to them being like, "All right, this is stupid. We're not gonna fight." But like, if they did that for a second in this episode would fall apart. Because this episode is like a bunch of random scenes where it's like, "Hey, let's not fight." Like, if any moment they did that, this episode would immediately fall apart.
Because this is an episode that, like you said, suffers from the Fies syndrome.
Oh, Jesus. No. Fuck
honest
that.
Honest conversation would happen, there'd be no episode.
Yeah.
And
see, the thing with Fies is like there's like layers of meaning where it's like we can't talk to each other because we're all guarding secrets. There's no secrets here. Right. Like, forget the Fies syndrome, now it's the Saber syndrome. Because Saber is literally doing the thing that everybody complains about Fies doing. Like Fies, you can justify it. Here, you cannot.
Right. As much as it irritated me in Fies, specifically I'm going to text the girl I'm in love with that's sitting next to me, and neither one wants to talk to each other, so they don't actually know they're sitting next to each other. That whole scene...
Yeah, that went a little bit too long, but I'm like... They're pretty much both like super awkward, so they don't like. Right. Honestly, they had no idea they lived in the same city, right? So,
every time they had this justification, they had justification for why the characters wouldn't know each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Despite the fact that she's shown up and given them clothes to the dry cleaner, she used a different part of her name that she doesn't use in conversations. Like.
Because she's in hiding, right? Would she use her name?
Every instance of the Fies syndrome is entirely justifiable by watching the show and understanding the characters. Right. And everything that we've been informed in the way we've been the narrative is told. Here it's just dumb.
Right. I mean, like, even in Fies they get manipulated, where it's like, well, that's what Murakami and Lucky Clover do for a while, which is why like Fies and the like rogue faction or Orphanac who don't want to kill people don't team up. It's because Murakami's trying to turn them against each other, right? Right. So, which is fine, which is exactly what happens here. But the difference is like they weren't on the same team until like an hour ago. right? Like it takes them like half the show to be like, all right, we all trust each other. We all know what the fuck is going on. We don't like those guys. They're trying to fuck us over. Let's team up, right? Because they all have to be super careful, otherwise they're gonna get murdered.
Right, and even then, they spend a good portion of that point not understanding that he's spies.
Oh yeah.
So they still end up fighting because he doesn't know who the Horse Orphanok is, and the Horse Orphanok doesn't know who Fies is, despite the fact that they know who they are in person. They just don't know who's in the suits.
Right, because the thing is, like in Fies, different people can use the Fies gear.
Right, like it leads to, a very interesting story. It's a very slow story, but it's very good.
Right, I agree. It definitely drags at certain points, but I will take any dragging part of Fies over any dragging part of Saber. Yeah, because like Saber is like the reason it drags is because you forgot to pace this well, and that's the same problem in Fies. But the Fies thing is like there's so much going on. Here, there's so much going on, but there's no reason for so much to be going on.
Right.
Right.
And, like it's sad that what I feel would be the best episode of the last 16 that we've had, in terms of just like overall idea that this episode presents, is just bad overall. Like it's great if you take it out of the context of Saber. The fact that the best episode has nothing to do with the villains at all, beyond the little opening scene we get. Everything else is just everything involving the writers in their life, and then all the traitor shit, which again should have been fantastic.
Oh yeah, if they gave it a sec.
But they decided not to red herring us instead of letting us think it was Southern Base was the traitor, instead of just going, yeah, that is the traitor, and having it be somebody else. Like that, I felt that would have worked better.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the problem with this episode is it needs a fucking rewrite, right? It's like 80% there. Like just somebody needs to rewrite this shit to fix it. And that's like the biggest problem. Like it's not bad. It's just like, again, the more you know about Saber, the more stupid this seems.
Right. Like I would understand this episode a lot better if it played out same as it did, except Buster and Slash stopped to actually listen to Saber.
Right. Honestly, I feel like Buster was trying. Where he's like, dude, just give up the belt. We don't have to fight. Like, at least he sort of tried.
Right.
But, like Slash did nothing.
But because of the two knuckleheads, they decided they had to fight too. And that that should never have happened. Those two, Buster and Slash, should have never, ever been in that fight. They've been around too long. They're too intelligent to... the possibility of things to have ever even gotten to that point.
Right, especially because Slash's whole thing is like, oh, I don't like fighting between writers, right? And then look what he does.
Right,
it's like the dumbest thing.
It made sense for him to want to fight Caliber. That made sense. Because what the fuck, you killed my friend.
Right, exactly.
That makes sense. Here makes no sense. Like if they would have taken that out, let Buster and Slash not so much hear him out, but at least not fight until they could get the information from Toma. Let Kenzan and Blades fight them. That's fine. I can live with that. The two hyper emotionals in this particular scenario, that makes sense for them to jump into the fight and them to do that. And you can still have, Mr. Ultima Sword show up, do his thing. And the show would balance right. You wouldn't have an unnecessary 4-on-1.
Oh yeah, I mean, like even like Kenzan's like, what the fuck are you doing? Fight back, right?
Right.
At which point I'm like, okay, Saber, like there's no way you can even fucking hold your own against four riders coming at you. And like if it was like, oh right, Slash and Buster are sort of holding back, I'm like, okay, you have a chance, but they're not. They're just going at it. So I'm like, okay, just use your fucking power up. But I guess the power up's getting saved for next episode.
Right,
This
and
is
it's
a
more
weird
of a,
episode, man.
and at least I can explain Saber's actions away. He doesn't want to fight because he doesn't know who the traitors are, and he knows this is a setup.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He can't do this. So instead of talking, he's not really gonna fight. He'll defend himself, but he's not gonna fight. You would think
Yeah.
that Kenzan would at least understand, hey, he's not fighting back. Maybe there's a reason. We should find out what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kenzan kind of got on the thing of like, why are you fucking even listening to Caliber? Like, fuck you.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear any of this. Which would, I mean, that is kind of what he's going for. But honestly, I feel like weirdly enough, he's like pretty emotional. But I want him to be even more emotional in that moment where it's like he's just like, fuck off. I don't want to listen to anything Caliber has to say.
Right, like he should have been at the level of Blades.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like easily. I mean, you killed his best friend / ship lover. I don't fucking know what they're on that one.
Well, I mean, he considered like all the Sword of Logos to basically be family, right? So he just killed
not
member.
him. I meant Kenzan. Kenzan had
okay.
weird,
Kenzan and Espada.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Like, I don't know what their relationship. That's
I don't know what that is. Because sometimes it comes across of, I admire your strength.
Oh, that is a good point.
Oh my God, please have my babies.
Shut up. But
I mean,
I know what you mean. Like, it's weirdly like he's like Kenzan's so affected by his death, but they're like barely had any screen time. You're right. It's weird.
Like his level of emotion is nowhere near what it should be based on the buildup that we've had for his infatuation for Espada.
Yeah, I mean, I could also buy it if it's like, oh, this is his first death that he's seen that one of his team, considering like Kenzan is like the youngest one. Like, again, some fucking character, right?
Right.
But you can't have that.
There are aspects of this episode that, as standalone, are phenomenal ideas. A lot of this episode is phenomenal ideas.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a good setup. Like, it's
executed badly.
Yeah, like it's a good setup for an arc if they did it well. The problem is like they did it kind of half-assed, right?
Yeah, they did, which kind of is the trend for the show because everything so far has kind of felt half-assed.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is sad.
Yeah, we're 38 minutes in. Honestly, I don't want to sit here and complain about the same thing. It's like, yeah, good episode, or no, decent episode could have been a lot better if they just paced shit properly. And like, honestly, the biggest problem is like they didn't characterize the characters well.
No, right? They didn't.
Like, that is the number one problem in this.
This show really needs to stop something.
What's that?
Because it's already obvious enough. They can stop showing us.
Oh, the henshin?
No, the whole death thing with Espada.
Yeah.
Because, he's not actually dead. He's stuck in the sword.
Is that proven? But, okay, no, forget it. I don't want to know. But the point is, like...
But they focused... Ever since this happened, they have focused so much on the whole red eye smokiness of it, and then the whole smokiness around the sword. They've harped too much on it.
Yeah, the problem is, though, Caliber came back from the sword, so I don't think they're going to bring Kenzan, but it's possible. But that's going to, like, random spoiler shit.
It's either that, or they're going to find Tassel and do it.
Yeah, that's...
Considering the fact that Tassel apparently is an actual person in this universe, because that's where little Mr. Arthur Sword has been.
Right, I mean... The problem, too, is, like, it feels like Saber is gonna fight him next episode, so I'm like, it's unlikely that he's gonna help him that easily.
The show's it's got its great fantasticness, but it is so off the rails with what it's trying to do.
I feel like we should give the writers like, all right, you have to have one episode and then one episode to breathe. One episode to breathe before you drop the next plot point. But this show, like, no.
Or do, if you're gonna do it, with writer and monsters and all that, follow the Ryuki model. It's not a hard model.
Oh yeah.
Have them act like real fucking people for half a fucking episode, then have them go fight.
I mean, if the Ryuki shit is too hard, just do the fucking blade thing, of like, all right, 2 minutes, not even one episode.
I'm just
right?
doing something
just
that
doing
has
anything.
Nothing to do with what's going on.
Right, exactly. I mean, like, I think
that pacing back.
You know what the saddest part is? I just realized, like, they don't have one of the writer tropes, and one of the writer tropes is they usually have like a hangout place, and they've had this since like the first Kamen Rider show, but this show doesn't have it. They had the base, but they don't even go to the base, and like even if they go to the base, it's always about the mission, so it's not a place where they can chill out. Whereas like Wizards sort of had this, but like they at least had like downtime in the freaking antique shop.
Right. In the antique shop, the donut shop.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Which even that was still ended up half the time serving plot purposes, but they had the places that they went that weren't just business, plot, plot.
Yeah,
and then got to see the characters be real people rather than robots who fight.
Right. I mean, like, even if you're gonna do like, okay, we're gonna have to use the home base as the base where everything happens. It's like Ghost did that, but like, they have so much more downtime in Ghost. Weirdly enough, I mean, they have almost this size. No, actually, they probably have a bigger cast than this. Right. They have less villains, but considering the villains all have the same plot in this, it doesn't matter. Right, so and
given the fact that, and to be fair to Ghost in terms of cast, like a good portion of their heroes started out as villains.
Yeah, I mean, my other counter argument is it's the same people who wrote Ghost, so it's like, why are you fucking up now?
Yeah,
right? Like the one good thing about Ghost,
you fucked it up.
Yeah, right. Like the one good thing you did in Ghost, now you're screwing it up. It's so weird. Anyway,
Like, I'm holding out hope that this show will pull a Q Ranger and get better.
I mean, it's getting better. It's just pacing is so crazy.
Q Ranger did it in 10. And now, you remember our first podcast on Q Ranger. It was god-awful.
Yeah, it's not great.
Like, the start of Q Ranger is absolute garbage.
Oh yeah.
And I dare anyone to argue with me. And King, if you're listening, you don't count.
Oh, that's harsh.
Well, I don't. She doesn't count because she's the one person I know who actually just loves all of Q Ranger.
Wow.
But from an objective standpoint, the first 10 episodes are just hot garbage. It's once they truly get into that first actual honest to God arc of that show, it gets fantastic. It's got some fuck ups along the way, like lack of character development, lack of focus on certain characters. But overall, the show's fantastic. It fumbles a little bit at the end, but a lot of shows do. Especially Sentai. A lot of Sentai's fumbled near the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a Toei problem because they ran out of budget all the time.
I've never watched a Rider or Sentai in the last 11 years that hasn't figured their shit out well before now.
Right. Like, this is the sad part. Like, I feel like, you know how like Decade was supposed to be 15 and they extended it? I don't know, man. Like, no, fuck that. I'm not sitting through Decade. But like, I feel like the second half of Decade had a sort of better cohesion than this, where it's like, okay, we're kind of getting to the decent part of Saber. Like, yeah, problem is to get there. We're just killing all characterization.
Right, and it's to the point.
It's like a reset.
Like for me, literally up until the series, it was the highlights of my week. We're getting the Sentai episode and the Kamen Rider episode for the week. That was my, my pivotal moment. This is what I looked forward to in my week. I don't care if I get the next episode of Saber.
Oh, dude, like I haven't given a shit about this show.
Like,
okay,
I
literally
am
watch it.
Interested in this show.
Yeah, I literally watch it, like maybe like 2 hours before we have to do this. Sometimes like 15 minutes before we have to do this. Because I don't care enough about this show.
I will watch it when I get it, just so I don't have to sit through it later.
Yeah, I guess. My thing with this...
Because if I didn't watch it then, we'd be doing a podcast that I didn't watch the episode for.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like if this was strung together, like Rai's saying, I think at this point it might flow better. Because I'm like, alright, that wasn't incredibly terrible. I want to see what happens in the next episode because of the preview. But like... wait a week and then I'm like I don't have the excitement to watch this again. I'm like I'll look at it, but like I'm not excited. Like the worst part too is this is the follow up to 01. And like I feel like shit we were like way too fucking hard on 01 compared to this shit.
And especially honestly about the worst thing that we were really hard on 01 for was the whole Thousand Island thing, which got cut because of the pandemic.
Oh fine. Yeah.
So yeah, that was legitimately cut out. It's why that him switching sides is so fucking jarring, and why we had the biggest problem with it. 01's absolutely solid. And they'd also changed certain too, like the fact that 02 was not supposed to be Aruto.
Oh really? Yeah, that's what I felt like. I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, 02 is supposed to be exactly as it is in the movie.
Okay, I'll check that.
That's
out.
coming.
Yep.
But like we gave 01 we gave 01 a lot of credit because it was doing very old iconic things while doing very drastically new things, and the story was engaging. The characters were fantastic. We just had Thousand Island to deal with.
Well,
it's about the worst. The Thousand Island arc, the initial,
the competition arc, yeah, that's probably the worst part.
That was where, like, we hit a brick wall with the show. But once we got over that, yeah, it's great. Outside of that switch, because again, that switch was supposed to take longer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas with this, it's not doing anything new.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that it's not doing anything new. It's making really, really obvious mistakes.
Right. It's like, it's not doing anything new, but the only thing new it's doing is this is Sentai. But also Rider versus Rider. That's about the newest thing it's doing. Everything else this show has done so far is treading old ground. Like, entirely old ground. Nothing about this show is new.
Yeah. I mean,
it's all the same shit we've seen before.
Yeah, the most annoying thing too is like this. We keep making the jokes that this is Sentai. I'm like, fucking the next Sentai looks more goddamn Rider than this show, right?
Yeah, it does.
Which I'm like, hey, that's cool. Sentai's experimenting, but
yeah, they are.
Right, and I'm like, that's great, but the problem then becomes with Rider is like, why are you making them like the worst part is this is making mistakes that Ghost didn't make.
Right.
And then that's the thing I can't forgive.
Like that's the point I was trying to make. It's like nothing about this show is new. Why are you making new mistakes? Like this show, everything in this show, aside from the Sentai aspect of it, is all taken from somewhere. Every bit of this show is from various different Kamen Riders. Because you have the greed-like enemies.
Oh yeah.
Who all have their own type of monsters.
Right. Which barely gets involved in the story, which is sad.
Because it wants to be like too much like Ryuki and be Rider versus Rider.
Well,
Only you're
I
not
feel
gonna
like
have.
this is more like Kabuto, where it's like, yeah, we've got a ton of writers, and then monsters show up, but the monsters barely have anything to do with the story. I mean,
Ryuki.
they have
That's
character
Ryuki.
moments.
It's Ryuki. They have. There's no point to the monsters. They just happen to be a side effect of being where they're at.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Um, but like everything about the show is like it's every other Kamen Rider show, just kind of jam packed into one.
Hey, so we're doing like Sentai and Rider comparison, right? Like, didn't we get isn't like Zyuohger literally this plot where it's like the other world is cramming into the human world?
No.
Uh,
Well, I mean that's
I
how the show
mean, like
ended,
it's got a
but,
part of it, right?
the Zyuohger plot was essentially there's an item that connects both worlds.
Right.
For the animal people, I say four. There's more like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, there's a
But
couple different.
there's a couple extras that had left early. But 4 leave it. Earth gets attacked by monsters from outer space, who apparently are just playing a hunting game.
Right. They're poachers, space poachers.
They happen to destroy
Oh,
the
the
item
gateway.
that connects the gateway.
Yeah.
So so those 4 are stuck. So it's a matter of the entire plot is let's defeat the monsters and then reconnect our world so we can go the fuck home. It turns into let's
Right.
merge both the worlds, but that's kind of a last minute thing.
Yeah, that was sort of a fucking theme we did for a while, huh? Like, if this show ends with that, I'm like, God damn it, man! Like, how many? This is like the 4th show we've had this plot line. Ugh, whatever.
And Bill did it the best.
Well, let's see. Zyuohger, Build, Zio, Decade.
Well,
Decade.
okay, because I'm personal, I have to say Decade did it best because technically Zio's
Yeah.
Decade season 2. So
Right.
Decade did it best.
I feel like Decade did it best because it's like, oh, we got something really cool out of it, which is the combined world. But yeah, if we're not counting Decade, then you're right. Bill did it the best.
Yeah. Like Decade did it the best in the aspect of not only did it work and it was effective and it did what they wanted to do to make certain things happen, i.e. all the giant crossovers. It made them make sense. Despite the fact that they turned around and started doing, non-canon alternate universe ones anyways.
Anyway, well, I mean, they were just
Those.
honestly, yeah, it's true. But honestly, Ryder was,
But-
I mean, not Ryder, Toei was just cashing in on the Avengers bandwagon, where it's like,
Right,
hey,
but,
everybody's doing joint continuity. Let's try that. We can do that.
Which, again, is not hard, just you don't have to set them all in Tokyo.
Yeah,
Which they did anyways. They were all set in different cities anyways.
right. I mean, the thing is, like, they had a whole series, and then their series died, so it doesn't matter, right? Like the Rider versus Sentai series, it fucking crashed and burned.
But like the one thing that made Decade suck for the people who watched Kamen Rider before Decade, I was one of the few people who didn't, so it didn't bother me as much as it did everybody else.
Oh, dude, like the Kiva shit is the
one
worst.
problem. It gets explained why everything's so drastically different in the worlds that Decade goes to. That finally gets explained in Zio. Because his power
I know.
finally gets explained in Zio.
You just have to wait 10 years, and then you
Wait
get
10 years,
to.
wait 10 years and the show will make perfect fucking sense.
I know, right? Oh my god, it's the fucking worst. I mean, Decade Season 2 is great, but like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, the only way it could have been more perfect is, again, like, if Narataki is Schwartz, right?
Yeah.
Like, it would have been
Yeah.
perfect.
That would have been the only way to make that perfection.
I don't know. I'll still
if
head
Narataki's not in the V Cinema, I'm gonna be pissed.
He hasn't shown up in forever, man.
No, he hasn't.
Like, the worst part is after the Gaim one, like, Decade just goes like, I wonder what's that Narataki's deal. Specifically setting up that the next movie is gonna deal with Narataki's shit, and then he's never
And then
been
it
back.
doesn't.
Yeah,
He's never been back.
It's
Like
the
I
worst.
just I want him to eat the sea cucumber, and 2 for Narataki to show up and just yell "Damn you, Decade" again.
Right?
I
Like,
missed
fuck it.
that.
I'm fine with him showing up saying, damn you, Omazio or Schwartz doing it. At least I'm like, oh, at least it's something.
Right, like give some type of nod to Narataki. If you're not gonna have him in there, give a nod, and also if
Yeah.
you're gonna have Schwartz do it, like do it in a way that'll make us think that Schwartz is Narataki again.
Yeah, but they're not gonna do
I
it.
missed that thought line. I'm mad that they didn't do anything with it.
Dude, they had so much cool ideas that they could have done in Zio, which they
Oh,
refused.
yeah. And then they dropped the ball with the Gates Majesty movie.
Oh god, that movie looks like a train wreck.
Because if you reset the timeline, why in the fuck would you put the evil guys in it?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
That was the dumbest thing, was putting Schwartz in that timeline.
Okay, I want to ask a question though. Was Gates better in that movie, like acting
no.
wise? No, acting wise.
Well, acting wise, yes.
Yeah. See, this is what I was thinking too, because I'm like, when fucking Sogo showed up and he's not in his own show, he's better. And I'm like, oh fuck, this is literally the decade problem. Like every time he's shown up after his own show, he gets better. Right?
Now, in defense of that, and in defense of Gates Majesty being a terrible shithole of a movie, it's not enough to save that movie.
Oh, okay, yeah, that sucks then.
Because that entire movie is the entire second arc of that fucking show. It's the entire White Walls arc.
Why would you do that? That's the best arc in the show.
Yeah, and it's redone and very badly. The only good things about it is you get to see Waz again. You get to see Waz be Waz and him begrudgingly advent for Gates.
Yeah, don't remind me of good times, man. I'm just thinking of like fuck Tackle. I wish Waz was here.
And then seeing, but you get to see Tiryu and Date.
Oh, that's cool.
Even if it's only for a little bit, and just to drive the plot of don't be a dumbass, you know what you need to do.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, we've been going on for almost 57 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah, so summary of the podcast. Go watch Double, go watch anything but Saber.
Well, the problem...
Like,
okay, here's the
If
thing.
you watch Saber, like,
Yeah.
if you're watching this and you have not seen any Kamen Rider and you're here to figure out what this show is,
It's only going to go up.
give it a watch, because it can only get better.
No, I meant like all other Rider is better than this shit. Pretty
Like,
much.
this show, in theory, should only get better. Because it is starting its upswing. And
Yeah.
that's fine.
My
But
other
it'll
thing
give
is
you a
like...
deeper, this show, if you start watching this, it'll give you a deeper appreciation for any other Rider show. Because
yeah.
they're so much better.
Right. I was also going to say, like, if you're watching this and you've seen some previous Rider shows and you're interested in writing an episode, like Tokusatsu or any superhero show or whatever, like, watch an episode of this and figure out why you don't like it. Go watch an episode of a show you like and see why that works. It'll give you an
And then
appreciation
compare
how not to write a show. Right, because the thing with Saber is like like Zio, it's got really good setups for shit.
It just doesn't know how to execute.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is like you actually do tend to learn more from like train wrecks like this than good shit, because if it's so well done, it's kind of hard to learn from, because like then all you have to do is repeat that. When it's kind of a mess like this, it's like, okay, this is not terrible, but like I can change this and this and this and it'll be better. Do that. If you want to use it as an exercise to learn, good. If you want to watch it, I don't know, man. It's up to you.
Like, if you want to watch it, like for me, at this point, I'm watching it for the sake of completion.
Oh, same.
Just to say I finished it, just to add one more checkbox to my list.
Yeah.
Because I've only got like 2 left.
Right. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, I didn't finish Forza and Deno.
3. I have 3 left.
Yeah, so like from Black, the only 3 I haven't seen is RX, Forza, and Double. Right?
Okay, I'm only counting Heisei because I've not seen.
Well, I mean, Black and RX are the 2, and then you have like Pure Showa. Right? Because I've seen all the 90s movies and shit, right?
Right.
Which are pretty good. I mean, they're interesting. I'll give you that.
But I need to finish Kuga, Hibiki, and Kabuto.
Huh,
Those are the only 3 left I need to actually finish.
Kuga's actually really good. I mean, it's a lot.
Kuga's really good.
It's slow pay. Yeah, it's slow.
But I
like
finished
its
Agito
characterization is amazing in that show.
I finished Agito, and Agito is slow as hell. Fantastic, but it's slow as shit.
Yeah, Kuga is maybe a little slower. Actually, probably not because it's got more characters. But yeah, it's around the same thing. But it's a lot more consistent. Like Kuga is like insanely good at world building and characterization.
Like Kabuto, I got pissed off at characters, so I decided.
Oh yeah, I mean I can understand that. Like Kabuto, like,
and then
honestly, like you cannot watch Kabuto for Kabuto because he will piss you off so fast.
He's nothing but a dick. And Hibiki, I haven't had a hard time getting into because it's so different from what I'm used to watching.
That's true.
I mean, it's honestly, such a drastically different show. Granted, it was supposed to be a different show.
Yeah, the solution I say for Hibiki is like you don't watch Hibiki for Hibiki. You watch it after you recover from a devastating Rider show, because like.
So hey, I know what I'm watching next season.
Yeah. For that, well, I meant like something like if you watch like the end of like Faiz or Blade or Ryuki, something like real fucking depressing.
Oh, that heartbreaking, depressing. Yeah. I can give you that too.
That's what you save Hibiki for. It's like you watch it afterwards to recover as a human being. Well, like half of Hibiki. The other half is kind of like standard Rider, but it's like a weird mix. It's like a whole different Rider show just started up. They just have the same characters.
Yeah, I can give you that.
Yeah, it's weird.
All right, so now that we found a way to extend this a couple more minutes.
Yeah, I'm good. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. And we will have Sentai next Tuesday and Rider next Wednesday. And Vashi, final thoughts?
Oh, yes. Please come join us for Kira Major, because as off-the-wall and fun as that show is, shit has hit the fan. Let's find out which side of that fan Kira Majors are on. Probably not the good side.
Well, it'll be interesting anyway. Yep.
And then we will begrudgingly back here for episode 17 of Saber on Wednesday. And I will actually make it back for 2 in a row.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, don't push yourself, man. It's fine. But
and in hindsight, that I've realized an hour later, and next week we'll actually have the episodes.
Oh my god!
The bottom of the screen. I happened to just look over, like,
dude. No, I have this set up. Why is it not working?
Yeah, it's not showing.
What the fuck? No, I had this set up. It was working fine. Okay. Okay, yeah, I don't know why it's not working. It's set up perfectly.
Yeah, it just wasn't going. I just happened to notice it because my mouse was.
The number's not even showing up. What the fuck? I had this perfectly set up, and now none of it's working. What the hell?
Oh yes, it likes to break. A lot, apparently.
Okay, yeah, that's weird. I don't know what's going on. Like, everything should be visible. All right, let me see. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It should have been working. But yeah, anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, I'll pay more attention to that next week. So
no, it's my fault. I set it up. It was working, and then it stopped. What the fuck? All right, later.
Later.